On today's program, we welcome in executive producer of Antiques Roadshow, Marsha Bemko. Marsha, thank you so much for being with me on KMET Radio.
My pleasure to be with you.
Marsha, your career in television spans 30-plus years. Can you tell our audience how it was breaking into the business back then and becoming producer, senior producer, then executive producer?
It was a different time 30 years ago because we had many less channels, those of you who remember watching TV back then. But it wasn't easy. I remember my first job, I think it was about $7,000 a year, and I was really happy to get that job in television. And I want to remember probably over 100 people applied for this little entry-level clerk typist job. So it's always been competitive. It's competitive now. I know when people apply for jobs with Roadshow, we get a ton of applicants for it. But what happens, and it still happens, it's the same kind of thing, the same kind of person who perseveres and makes it. You wicked into it. You really want to do it. And so if you're determined, you keep looking and you find that next job. And it's what I did. And it's the same thing that's happening now. The difference are the jobs to find. So now when I was looking for jobs, there was no digital jobs. There's whole other platforms that we're consuming television and content on. And frankly, we're more economical now. So back when I broke into the business, when you, say, worked on a documentary film, there were little 3-person teams in the making of it. Now those teams are probably 1.5 people. So it gets a little harder, but there's more, the landscape is wider.
Now, Marsha, are you a collector of antiques? And is this, I know your program focuses on antiques. Have you always wanted to be affiliated with an antique show, or did you want a different platform to produce?
Oh, we found each other. I think when a person enters television, at least this was like this for me, and I talk with a lot of people who are at the front end of their careers, you really don't know what kind of television you want to make. You know what kind of television you like to watch. And I was that same 20-something who tried on a lot of different things. I lived in L.A. I moved across the country. I worked on, you name it, I worked on it. Illegal things, but other than, good things, tasteful things. But you worked on variety shows, documentary, everything. And you sort of find your way. And for me, I had to work in television. I would say finding my sweet spot and understanding my own, what worked for me. I'd say I had been working in television for about 15 years. Did I know it was antiques? Gotta be frank, no. It was the executive producer that back then who called me and asked me if I'd be interested in joining the program. It wasn't something I had imagined for myself. I'm glad she imagined it for me because there couldn't be a better fit.
And it's so successful, your program. Can you describe for us what a normal business day is like for you from start to finish?
All right, I'll give you a normal business day, which doesn't include touring because that's like the exciting stuff where we are out there seeing all our antiques, which is a whole different kind of day. But a normal day is I will come into the office somewhere around 9 o'clock, give or take, and then probably like everybody else in their job, I come in and I consumed by my email for a good hour, but then I have to break away. At 10 o'clock, there is something. Often there's a screening. And what we do is we do screenings of the program. We do first pass all together. We do a second pass all together. And then I do a third pass all by myself. But in that first pass, it takes several hours to do that screening because we stop after every appraisal. We really tear apart what we just watched. How can we make it better? What's wrong with it? So that we're going to try and really scrutinize, really work hard on this so that by the time you're watching it, we've really examined that. And so after that screening, it's probably lunchtime. I do eat. I love my lunch. And then after lunch, there's often strategic meetings. So, for instance, this week, our big strategic meeting, which didn't happen exactly after lunch, but some of it did, was the post-mortem, which we need to examine all the things that went wrong on the tour that we did this year. Now, what could go wrong? Nothing big, people. But the kinds of things that in every city, as those of us who produce that tour and make the show, there are always little things. We're seeing thousands of people. So we try to perfect our process. I'd say my day normally lasts till about 6:30, and sometimes earlier, sometimes later. But it's always an interesting day. I'm reviewing research. We're doing fact-checking. The great part about working on a show like Antiques Roadshow versus working in an environment where maybe you're working for an ad agency writing about the product you're selling is that I learn something every day because of the material we're talking about. So we're fact-checking that. We're researching it. So my job's really interesting. Like, I have to pull myself away and say, it's time to go home for dinner. That's what my day is like. Full, and I'm a really blessed person. It's a great day.
Well, Marsha, I mean, your hard work pays off because Antiques Roadshow has been nominated 17 times, right, for an Emmy Award, 15 times consecutive. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned it because that 17th one just came this week.
Congratulations.
It doesn't get old, by the way, but when we got the news, I happened to be at PBS, and we got the text from the unit that, in fact, we did get nominated. And, yes, we were screaming in the halls of PBS, so that news never gets old.
No, congratulations. How does what do you feel attributes to the show's success?
In short, we are smart reality television. You can watch Antiques Roadshow, and yes, maybe it's a different stickly table, but usually you're going to see unique objects, one-of-a-kind things that even if there are others made like it, and you're going to hear stories that teach you something about the world around you, or the world as it used to be. And that is a very engaging thing. And also, everybody on our show, including the experts, nobody's a professional actor. Everybody's there, just like you and me, the guests, are everyday people who come in with something. Sometimes they know they have something good, but they don't know what they have. And it's really engaging to watch them learn about their thing, their object. Some of us are hoping, I wonder if mine at home is just like that. But we learn something about our country. And I think that combination of watching every man, learn from an everyman expert type about something pretty special, but sometimes not so special, that teaches you something about the world around you and has this fun little payoff of value is irresistible.
No question. And before Antiques Roadshow's inception, Marsha, can you give us just a quick history? How did the concept come about to bring the program to America? Because it was originally on BBC. Is that right?
And it still is on the BBC.
Okay.
Yes, we licensed the right to do the show, the North American rights. We licensed it from the BBC to do in this country. And here we are. We just we're getting ready to tape season 24. Is what we're going to tape for next year. What you'll be seeing next year on the air is what we'll be taping next year. I'm sorry, touring next year, season 24. So we've been here for a while, and it's I'll tell you the story. It starts with Peter McGee, who is a now retired vice president of WGBH. He would go to England very often for business to do co-production deals. And while there, he would turn on the TV, and his favorite show was Antiques Roadshow. So he came back to the United States and said, let's try this thing out. And without going into a lot of detail, he struggled very much with pushing the concept and arguing its value. But he succeeded in that. And and it had its premiere. It was so successful, I think it was a surprise to all. It was so successful that after it aired the first year, in the second year, where I didn't come to Roadshow till its fourth year, so I missed this, but I've heard the stories. When we were in L.A., they had to close down the freeways because more than 10,000 people showed up because they wanted to see our experts and get their their antiques appraised. We started in season 5 with ticketing the event because people were sleeping out to come to Antiques Roadshow. And even now when we ticket the event and we give out about 3,000 pairs of tickets, we will have, in some cities, over 20,000 applicants for those 3,000 pairs of tickets. So people are hungry for what we're talking about and are still hungry. And it was Peter McGee's little twinkle in his eye 25-plus years ago. He thought maybe we'd make an episode and it might be fun.
We're talking to executive producer of Antiques Roadshow, Marsha Bemko. Marsha, I asked you this question in the past. How does Antiques Roadshow select its appraisers for each category, and how does that process work in your decision-making on who's going to be the actual appraisers for each episode?
You know, every expert associated with Roadshow is someone who can be in the episode. Anyone, when it comes time to, we work with a pool of about 150 experts, about 75 are in each venue when we're touring. I'll give you one big word, an umbrella word for how we pick our appraisers, carefully. We know that, first of all, they need to be knowledgeable. They don't have time to look everything up. They do look up a lot. They sit there with a lot of reference books and reference materials and computers. But they need to know what they're talking about because it's a busy, busy day. So they need to be knowledgeable. They need to have a good reputation. And so we do background checks, but we also check their gossip before we allow a new expert to join us. We know that you'll trust them. We want you to trust them. PBS is one of the most trusted institutions in America, and anybody associated with our show will be trusted. And we're so careful to choose carefully so that we never violate that trust. And then for as far as who gets into the episode, I'll be frank, there are some, and you all know it that are listening who watch the show, there are some appraisers who are better performers than others. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, thank God for editing. Ain't that the truth? So we do our best to even encourage the best performance we can from those who are knowledgeable but frankly aren't, movie stars. But the story carries the sequence. And so when you watch a road show, I hope that none of you are thinking, boy, this man, this woman isn't that very good. I don't care about what they're saying. Because the guest is half the talent in that show. And we're interested. They're you and me. Only they own something good.
And what about the decision process in selecting the items that are being appraised on your program?
We're at the mercy. We are truly, truly at the mercy of what walks in the door that day. We have a new thing we tried this year. We're going to continue it. Behind the scenes, we call it COSO. That stands for Knock Our Socks Off. And we have people, after the ticketing's done and the tickets have been given out and you didn't get one maybe, we have you do a second chance entry. And we say, knock us off with your story, and we'll pick you and give you a ticket to come in. And so that's items that we may have we know are coming, but we don't know who's bringing them, when they're coming, or anything like that. And then we pick up some furniture, about 8 to 10 pieces, depending upon the amount of space we have available to put them down after they get to the venue. And we move those, large pieces that people wouldn't be able to get, so that we can talk about those too. But other than those two little groups of things, the other 3,000 people who are coming with 2 objects each, the 6 objects that are coming, with 6,000-ish objects that are coming, we have no clue. So
Wow.
Who makes the first decision? The appraiser. And keep in mind, our experts are investing in the show too. They're very devoted. They pay their own way to Antiques Roadshow. They pay their own hotel nights, and they're volunteers. We don't pay them. They donate their services to public television. So they, on a business note, their ROI, their return on investment, is making sure at least they get taped. So here's how the day goes. People come in with their great things, and most of them just get an appraisal. If you have something really great, the appraiser says, will you wait for a producer? And they pitch that item to the producer. And they're pitching like mad bunnies because they want to hopefully get it taped, so they hopefully at least have an opportunity to get, we don't use everything we tape, even if it's taped, it could get cut. So they pitch like crazy, and they are in the front lines. They're telling us as producers why this object is interesting. We couldn't do what they do. As much as I know about antiques, as much as all of us know, they are experts. We're truly a team there. And we select from among the stories we're pitched. So how do we select the good stories? We select the good objects.
So you must have witnessed a lot of amazing, appraised, valuable items. What was the biggest, most shocking in your career?
Okay. So I have to answer that question just a little differently because I've seen a lot of things, and I'm a jaded roadshow producer who has seen a lot of very, very valuable things. But we recorded something in Fargo when we were at Bonanzaville on this tour that we were just finished a few weeks ago that you all will see next year. It's an amazing story and that I need to tell because the biggest is an amazing object and the most shocking thing, one of the most shocking things that's ever happened in my years of recording the roadshow happened. And that is we saw a Rolex came in from a man who had been a soldier in Vietnam, and he bought it back in the 1970s. And it's a Rolex oyster case at the Cosmograph. Now, you've seen Rolexes on Roadshow before, and you know they can be very valuable. You've seen $10,000 Rolexes. You've seen 100,000 plus Rolexes. It matters what kind of Rolex it is. Well, this man decided that he was, after he bought it in the 70s, and he wanted to buy it because he saw the pilots in Air America that he was in between Vietnam and Laos, and he saw them wearing gold ones. So he wanted one, too. So he saved his money, spent a little under $350 to buy it. Keep in mind, $350, that's about, he was making $300 to $400 a month. This was a lot of money for him.
Wow.
He puts this watch away. He gets it, and he looks at it. He's going to use it for scuba diving. The oyster case, by the way, is Paul Newman is this Rolex is famous because it's that Daytona watch that Paul Newman wore that his particular personal watch sold for $17 million.
Oh, really?
One like his sells for over $150,000. But anyway, this oyster case, which was made a little later than Paul Newman's version, is better because the oyster case is even more watertight than Paul Newman's version of the Daytona. So anyway, this man gets the watch, and he decides after looking at it, he wears it once, and he says, this thing's just too nice to wear. I'm going to wear my junkie watch. And he puts all the paperwork and everything in a place, and he just never wears it. He wore it once. Puts it in a safe deposit box. And he doesn't even fill out the warranty paperwork, which, by the way, he learns during the appraisal that because it's unfilled out, its paperwork itself is worth $2,000. And Peter Plains, who does the appraisal, says to the owner, a watch like yours is worth $400,000.
Wow.
And the man falls down.
Wow.
And what I'm not going to tell you, after he gets up, because I want you all to watch, but he gets up and Peter Plains says to him, but your watch is worth.
Unbelievable.
And he gives him a better amount. And he jokes with him after the man gets the value of his watch to say, don't wear it. It'll be worth $400,000. It's like new old stock stuff. So for the first time ever in my life of making the show, or in ever Roadshow's history before I was there, someone actually went down. He got right up. He wasn't hurt. But for me, that's the most shocking thing that ever happened was a man to fall down. I can't wait for you to see it.
Man, almost $500,000. That's outrageous.
And you know, I'm just going to give you a hint because it's just too mean not to. His is worth over that.
Uh-huh.
Okay, because he didn't wear it. It's, as Peter Plains says to him, there's not another one like it probably in the world.
So he's gonna he plans to hold on to it and not auction it off in the future.
You know, that is the really interesting thing about people who have wonderful things that come to Roadshow. Statistically, they keep their objects. And we have stories where they don't. And but statistically, they keep their objects. We haven't heard yet. Usually it takes a person time to get over the shock of that news and decide what to do, if anything, with the object. So I haven't heard yet what he's going to do about it, but we'll see. It's an awful lot of money. It's a big responsibility, and you got to pay to ensure that.
We're talking to Marsha Bemko, executive producer of Antiques Roadshow. Marsha, you've been in the media business for over 3 decades. You've definitely seen a change from the television medium to now the digital medium with the audience viewership. What is your opinion on that? Do you have any opinion regarding the old-fashioned watching the television on the tube versus this age with the digital media?
You know, I had very mixed emotions about it. I'll be honest, because I grew up in a different time. And when I started producing Roadshow, I watched it on TV, and that was the only way really to consume it. I love that we're available, that you can watch us pretty much on all your devices, through different platforms, online, broadcast. I love all that. We tweet during the live broadcast, and I'll be honest, I miss the old-fashioned just sitting back and watching my television. But I so enjoy learning. You know, it's a very mixed thing. I really enjoy hearing those who are watching the show, those who we're making it for. We're not making it for ourselves. We're making it for people to watch, and they're the ones talking to us on Twitter. So I really enjoy that engagement, but I have to be honest, I miss the old-fashioned, wow, I can just sit here and watch it and not be distracted.
No, I agree. I feel the same way.
Badly.
No, I feel the same way. If you can tell our listening audience where they can tune in to the Antiques Roadshow.
And I'll tell you where you can tune in. You can tune in, obviously, at your PBS station anywhere. On November 4th, like I was telling you, we have people who do things with their objects. We have a special show coming up. They're dressing just that. It's called Extraordinary Finds. You can watch it online. You can watch it on pretty much any platform you're watching television on.
And final question, Marsha, any projects, appearances that you're working on that you want to note or mention?
That is the biggie. I really can't wait for everybody to see this Extraordinary Finds. It's a multi-platform episode that we're working on right now. We're editing it right now. We will tell you stories about things that have sold for enormous amounts of money. We'll tell you stories about discoveries we've made of objects that we have found and what we've learned since finding them. And so it's a really exciting hour. We're basically telling you stories we can't believe they happened. So we're excited to share that.
Well, I appreciate your time, Marsha. I appreciate the content. Great stuff, and best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. Always great to talk to you, Brad.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was Marsha Bemko, executive producer of Antiques Roadshow, a show that really is so popular, and it's I love that show. I mean, it's nominated 17 times for an Emmy Award, 15 times consecutive. So it's so popular in this in this climate of these auction formats and all these television programs such as Pawn Stars, which is popular, Flea Market Flip, which is another popular program that focuses on antiques and collectibles, and of course Antiques Roadshow, which in my opinion, I think Antiques Roadshow is the most popular PBS program that I've ever seen, or it could be the most popular PBS program ever created. So, I mean, she does fabulous work with that program, and, it's on PBS. You can also Google it and watch some of these tremendous rare artifacts that come on the program, and they have such expert appraisers, and it's really an informative program. It's a very entertaining reality show, and she does great work with that. So thank you so much, Marsha Bemko, for being on today.